You play in a fantasy league that's actually competitive. These are the 10 best playoff stashes that you can still add on waivers. And we're starting with Christian Watson. And obviously, people that did stash him earlier in the season were rewarded in week 11 with his 2 touchdowns. I still think he is going to be available in your league. If you're watching this right now, he is available in 73.8% of leagues currently. Obviously, him coming back from this ACL, he's already been producing, hasn't had like a crazy explosion yet until last week, but it is kind of immediate proof that his post ACL output can still kind of carry that ceiling that he had before that injury, which is really nice. And you really don't have any additional question marks on him as well. The injuries have kind of forced Green Bay to feature him at this point. Tucker Kraft, Matthew Golden, Romeo Dobbs. So it's really a situation where, yeah, Jaden Reed is going to be out until at least the middle of November, it looks like. But Watson is the one that still has that downplay role, downfield role, and still is going to be soaking up a lot of those targets that guys like Tucker Kraft are leaving behind. So I think it's one of those situations where Watson already ripped off a 52-yard bomb against Carolina. He's already had that 85-yard game as well, kind of reminding you that he's still that explosive downfield option. Now he's going to get a Vikings defense here coming up that's allowed the fifth most points per game to opposing wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. The exact kind of matchup that can turn his boom profile into week winning spike potential. So I think it's probably the last time you're going to be able to grab him on the waiver wire, and someone that down the stretch could absolutely be a league winner for you in a playoff situation. And you really want to stash, if it's a wide receiver, someone that has some upside. So if he does end up in your starting lineup, you feel good about the ceiling that he's providing you. We're not trying at this point of the season to grab guys that are going to give us like a PPR floor. We want guys that can actually win us weeks when it matters most in fantasy football and as we approach the fantasy playoffs. So in that vein, another guy that I really like at wide receiver, we're going to talk about 5 wide receivers, 5 running backs today, by the way. So wide receiver number 2, Alec Pierce. He is available in 59.3% of leagues currently. So he was kind of like that post buy deep threat that we can get in this offense that I guess people are a little bit down on, but definitely shouldn't be the passing game, I should say. So they've led the NFL in yards per catch. Alec Pierce has led the NFL in yards per catch, a 67-yarder in 5 of his last 7. So these really big chunk plays, obviously not just getting scraps from him like we were just talking about. You're really going to get some true league winning and week winning production here, which is what we're looking for if he is available on the waiver wire. Like I said, about 50% of leagues. I think you can kind of bankable, like he's a guy you can bank some volatility for sure, but 10 targets in 2 of his last 3 games. And really just the A dot in general, every target is just worth more fantasy points. So when Indy is going to have these games where Danny Dimes drops back a ton, kind of like he has the last couple weeks, Pierce has been the one that's been leading the team in air yards. So I think he benefits the most when they kind of open things up a little bit, which is nice. In terms of like upcoming matchups, the Chiefs have allowed the third fewest tight end fantasy points and are pretty tough on running backs. So it could be a really nice situation for Pierce to have another really strong game and really have a chance to get another one downfield. So anytime we can get like these deep ball cheat codes, I think again we want these guys that can give us actual upside on our bench if they do end up in our starting lineup this time of the fantasy season. Another boom that we got last week was Michael Wilson. He's available in 84.8% of leagues currently. He's getting that wide receiver volume with Marvin Harrison Jr. out with that appendicitis surgery. So if we get another game of Wilson, it might be pretty big time. Explodes for 15 catches, 185 yards against the 49ers, 4 minutes left still in the game when that was happening. So the true wide receiver one usage with Brissett, obviously we've seen him elevate this offense a lot more than Kyler Murray was able to. And I think that even if we still get like a slight increase in targets when MHJ is back, I still think this is a situation where we really want to try and grab shares of this offense. And we've already just seen the blow up potential here for Wilson. And I think even when Marvin Harrison comes back, there's still going to be a nice steady floor here with really like eruption potential if there is another injury or if he ends up getting a nice little target bump there. So we like that. We've seen the spike before. It's not something that we're just hoping for at this point. So maybe he's a rental or maybe he's kind of like a week winning wide receiver if anything else happens in this passing game. We know that we have this ceiling here for him if things start to condense a little bit. So I like that. Xavier Legette, available in 78.9% of leagues right now. Again, kind of that boom bust profile, but real week winning ceiling. So 2 of his past 5 games have been an 80-yard touchdown in them. So, including that 4 for 8, 83 yards and a score in week 11 last week. So, he's already proved that that spike week potential is certainly not theoretical. And it was really nice for the Carolina passing game in general to show us that they can have these games where they're willing to throw. They've obviously been extremely run heavy at times this year, but it did look really good. Obviously, this is great for Tet McMillan as well, but also for Xavier Legette. So when Carolina is throwing, Legette is still the one that has a chance to erupt outside of Tet McMillan as well. So he ran a route on nearly every Panthers drop back, led the team in targets, receptions, and receiving yards. That's the exact usage you want attached to like a volatile passing offense, in my opinion. So Bryce Young, even when he doesn't get a ton of volume, he still has a relatively condensed target share. So that's exactly kind of what we want as well. So even if he ends up being behind Tet McMillan, maybe Tet goes down with something at some point. He's kind of that next up situation. So I think this pass offense, this receiving offense was kind of like a disaster from a volume perspective. And now we have legit upside in play here. So with the success that they've had, I don't necessarily think they're just going to go back to running the ball at the crazy rate that they were earlier. So I think that he's one of these situations where if they can kind of parlay that into this San Francisco matchup, it's a really nice option on the waiver wire that's relatively barren at wide receiver outside of these next man up situations that we've talked about before. There's one more wide receiver that I think a lot of people are kind of disrespecting right now, but the role is extremely solid. Mack Hollins. So we're trying to grab shares of this Patriots offense right now, right? So the volume spike for Hollins, I don't think is a fluke. I think it's real. 10 catches for 170 yards on 15 targets over the last 2 weeks. So 24.6% of his routes he's had a target. Drake May's actually funneling like real volume to Hollins' way when Kayshon Boutte has been sidelined. So 7 for 89, 6 for 100, 4 for 64 lines in those recent wins. That kind of gives you like 3 separate games of a sample size where he's functioned like a featured offense option in this offense rather than just a decoy. So he's always kind of had that deep speed, and it's really exactly what this offense needs with Boutte out and Stephon Diggs kind of doing his thing underneath. So Boutte's hamstring is something that obviously it already just flared up again, but Hollins has really led the Patriots wideouts and snaps at times, even when Boutte was out there. So double digit targets on a day when May only threw 31 passes is extremely bullish to me. So like that deep threat with Diggs underneath is super valuable in this offense for a quarterback that obviously is not scared to air things out. And week 12, guess who he gets? The Bengals, right? So this is kind of like that volume meets a broken defense situation. So week 12, Cincinnati, this matchup, obviously, I think you can put them right into like the wide receiver 3 category with wide receiver 2 upside. And I think the Bengals in general have just been getting shredded in some of these shootouts, right? So I think we know what we're getting against him at this point. The deep league, like wide receiver that I think you have to grab. And I think that, again, if you're trying to put a wide receiver at this point of the season on your bench, you better be someone that has a lot of downfield upside and can have like a spike week for you without a ton of volume. And if he does get that volume, you end up even having a higher ceiling than people realize. So these are exactly the type of players that you want on your bench going into the fantasy playoffs and going into the stretch that leads us there. Mack Hollins, Xavier Legette, Michael Wilson, Alec Pierce, Christian Watson. Those are our wide receivers. We have 5 wide receivers, or 5 running backs next, kind of these next men up that could potentially have league winning ceiling as well. And the first one being Emanuel Wilson. He's available in 94.1% of leagues. Jacobs, extremely questionable at this point with this injury to his knee. It does look like there was no structural damage or anything like that. So he is likely, there's nothing, I guess, that's going to be pulling him out for the rest of the season. But if this knee flares up, it's basically this workhorse role in Green Bay that Emanuel Wilson was basically given the keys for last week when Josh Jacobs went out. So I think this week against Minnesota, they're going to be able to run the ball. And I think when they do that, Emanuel Wilson's going to be a big part of it. 94.1% of leagues he's available in as well. So week 11 to me is still kind of like that proof of concept. The second Jacobs went down, Wilson was the one that delivered 11 carries, 40 yards, and a touchdown. Also had a catch for 9 yards as well. Already scored a touchdown on just 12 catches. Obviously, we know what this backfield's been able to do. Jacobs in particular has been able to do from a touchdown perspective. So it didn't seem like he was going to be splitting time in a committee, which is huge when we're trying to figure out these guys that we should stash on our bench, especially the running backs. We want guys that are going to come in and take the entire role. And be like kind of the best of the next men up or one injury away type of player. And this is one of the, I think, most appealing ones that I've seen all season. So I think that heavy touch usage that we get for Jacobs, and then obviously the upside of getting the touchdowns, but also this Vikings defense who's been allowing 4.5 yards per carry over their last 3 games. If Jacobs sits, Wilson becomes kind of like a 1 week RB2, that goal line upside. But again, a playoff that a pickup that could pay dividends down the road if there is another injury or if this ends up lingering for Josh Jacobs. Sean Tucker, available in 74.1% of leagues. Again, I still try and talk about players that are available in at least 50%. So Sean Tucker fits that mold. He's basically a lead back who is completely taking things over from Rashad White. 19 carries, 106 yards, and a rushing TD, plus 34 yards and another score on the ground this past week. Out carried Rashad White 19-10 in this game. So I don't think that this breakout was just volume. We got efficiency as well. 43-yard score to the edge. Also, trucked some defenders between tackles, looked really good from a burst and power perspective. Obviously, this came in kind of a big shootout, 44-3, but I still think that this Bucks team could keep finding himself in these type of shootouts. Again, pretty leaky defense, but very strong offense, exactly what we want for fantasy. And I think the role has kind of been building a little bit here for Sean Tucker for weeks now. In week 10, he rushed 9 times for 53 yards, outgained White on the ground for the second straight week before this week 11 explosion. So I don't think this is just a 1 week thing. Even though White played 71% of the snaps to Tucker's 33% against New England, Tucker was still pushing him on the rushing production. So that basically has earned him a bigger role going forward. Um, Really interesting, right? So tough matchup coming up here. So the Rams have allowed the fewest fantasy points per game to running backs this year, just 2 rushing touchdowns. So as tough as it gets on paper, but this position, we just want volume, right? Just handled 21 touches. And I think that if he can hold as this lead back while Bucky Irving kind of ramps things back up, that volume could carry into like a fantasy playoff stretch that includes the Falcons, the Dolphins, the Panthers. So whoever ends up being the lead back in this offense, maybe Bucky isn't right when he comes back, or maybe there's some sort of regression on this injury front, and we end up getting a Sean Tucker in the fantasy playoffs against the Falcons, Dolphins, and Panthers. That's league winning potential. So he's absolutely one of those guys that is one injury away from being a league winner and one of the best stashes you can have on your bench at this moment. Kenneth Gainwell. So we've been talking about these Pittsburgh running backs for quite a while. Kenneth Gainwell, 57.8% of leagues, he is available. It's really just the passing game explosion that we can get from him in any week, right? 7 catches for 81 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. That's the exact kind of spike week that makes him like a legit running back too, when the volume tilts his way in those type of games, right? So we did get a game back in week 4 when Jaylen Warren sat. He turned 19 carries into 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 catches for 35. Again, the exact kind of guy that can capture the entire role if there is an injury or if the volume starts to break his way a little bit more than currently. So he's kind of locked down, like locked into like a real standalone value type of passing game role anyways. He's going to be an absolute PPR monster if he gets a little bit more opportunity, even as the number 2. He's been still basically consistent from a PPR perspective. The Jaylen Warren setback, if that does happen, obviously he's kind of battling through this ankle injury. If we do get like Kenneth Gainwell for consistently more volume, he immediately vaults into like the running back 2, running back 1 conversation every single time. So clearly ahead of Caleb Johnson at this point, so we're not worried about that. And I think that we just basically can't let him sit on waivers any longer if he is out there. Go get him. Another one of these guys that can have like all of the running back touches on the ground, but also fully capable of taking things over through the air. Let's talk about Devin Singletary for a second. Available in 67.4% of leagues. I get it. It's been kind of a frustrating split between him and Tyrone Tracy since Cam Scatterbo went down. Week 11, though, Singletary handled 16 carries for 44 yards and 2 touchdowns plus a catch, while Tracy went 19 for 88 on the ground. Obviously, he went 4 for 51 receiving as well. It is really just like a true 1A, 1B split, but Singletary is who has the touchdown equity, right? So I still think there's going to be value here, especially in these games where I think they're going to be able to play for ahead and score touchdowns. He's definitely taken a backseat to Tyrone Tracy through the air, but the touchdowns is really the kind of usage that you want to stash when the gap between the RB1 and the RB2 is this small. we still want the guy that has the chance to score the touchdown. So I think this is like one of the closer backfields that we have right now. And if the passing game spikes a little bit when the Giants are chasing, I still think that there's a chance that he could be super active in the passing game as well. And his path to like PPR relevance is somewhat interesting, even if he is like the 1B in this backfield. So I think he's a guy that we can easily stash and feel pretty good if some chaos kind of goes this direction. Like one of the last like high leverage running back stashes available at this rate. So I think even in a tough matchup against this Lions team coming up, still a guy that you can put on your bench and wait and see. One more running back that should be on no waiver wires with what we've been able to see. Kind of similar to the last one, but an even bigger role. Tyler Allgeier available in 66.3% of leagues. There may be some people that have dropped him, but especially after what we just saw from Bijan Robinson, the red zone hammer is still Tyler Allgeier. Just because we had one game where Bijan scores some touchdowns, he's always going to be a threat to score from far out. Tyler Allgeier still is the one that they want to give these in tight touches too, but also he's handled double digit carries in multiple games this year. So the staff is fully comfortable feeding him when the game script tilts run heavy. So even in like these low usage spots, week 8 comes to mind, he still had a touchdown in that game. So I think if he can continue to steal even a little bit more work from Bijan Robinson, I think he's one of those guys that has a little bit of standalone value as well, but just massive upside if anything were to happen to Bijan. Probably the clearest like league winner type of handcuff in all of fantasy.